Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video. So patch 7.3 has just hit the PTR. It contains a new raid, which of course means we have a new tier of raid gear to take a look at. So, as is tradition on the channel, let's go through all that's been added and see how it squares up. There'll be a straw poll link in the comments, by the way, so you can use that to vote on your favorites. Overall, I think it's a very strong tier, especially since it contains a few of my favorite ever sets of gear, mainly the Mythic Rogue, which I think is absolutely superb. Now, it is still quite early on, so one or two of these have a few issues, but 95% of the stuff's all good, and I'll update the ones that aren't in my catch-all video that I'll do towards the end of the patch cycle when everything is solidified. Anyway, let's just get right into it and take a look at this new tier. Okay, let's get started with the Death Knight. So here's our first one, more of a black and red version of this set. Overall, I think it's quite a good looking one. I really like what's going on with the shoulders, and I think the helm is quite nice as well. Moving on to this recolor, the orange and black one, I think this is particularly cool. I generally like sort of matte blacks. I think they look really sleek and deadly, so I think a great set. And then finally, we've got the green one if you want more of a fell look. Kind of reminds me of the tier 19 hunter gear. Overall, though, very cool indeed. But time to see the mythic one. So the mythic Death Knight is pretty awesome. Now, it's, there's not a humongous upgrade, just that we have more effects going on. It's the quintessential Death Knight, isn't it? You're with your blue mist everywhere. Overall, I think looking pretty darn fantastic. And speaking of fantastic, let's take a look at the Paladin. Certainly people who will be no stranger to fantastic looking sets. First of all, we've got a black and gold version of their set. Now, overall, you'll probably notice that helm piece from some of the Draenei that we've seen around the place. Overall, though, I love the line work. It's less about flat lines, there's lots of curves. Overall, I think looking pretty damn nice indeed, and the kind of winged look to the helm is pretty awesome. So moving on to the other color variants, I love white armor, so I think that this is a brilliant one to have, so very happy for my Paladin. And then finally, we've got this gold and green one, which, to be honest, isn't really doing it for me, but hey, if you like it, then fair enough. But once again, we have to look at the mythic one. And holy crap, this thing is one of the best looking Paladin sets I think ever made. And this overall tier 21 does have some absolutely outstanding bits of work from Blizzard. I especially do like how they are using quite saturated colors. It means there's a really nice contrast going on. And yeah, I think that means it's stark, crisp, and quite pleasing to the eye. And finally, to round off the plate-wearing classes, we have the Warrior. Now, basically, there are some problems with the boots, some of the colors aren't in. Overall, though, I think this is a simplistic-looking set. It's quite chunky, which I think works the Warrior quite well. As far as the color variants go, neither the blue and gray or this one are particularly doing it for me, but this does seem to be one of the most work-in-progress sets. Now, with Mythic, unfortunately, we do have some more problems. The shoulders, just from the silhouette, do kind of remind me of the avatar of Sargeras, though, which is pretty cool. Overall, though, I think, set's got promise. A little bit early, though, and I'll update you in the future. Okay, moving on to the male wearer, he's got the Shaman, and I think this Shaman set is kind of middle of the road. I think it's got some brilliant elements. One thing that I love is, often you have the front of a helmet, it looks really cool, but what are you actually staring at most of the time? You're staring at the back. I like how they've thrown a little bone in there, I guess quite literally, but they've thrown something in there, a little bit of back detail, which I think is quite nice. I really do like the shoulders, I really do like the helm, so I think both of those will be good for making some cool transmog sets. That said, here is the Mythic one, and I think the Mythic one is really, really cool. This headpiece is, again, one of the more impressive ones that we've seen in the game. These shoulders look absolutely fantastic. Great detailing there in the bones. Very satisfying to look at. And now we move on to the hunters. Now, initially you mightn't have the best reaction, but I'd ask you to hold on because it gets really cool. Now, I main a hunter. What do I think of this? I really like the actual armor plating itself. I think that looks quite fantastic. The color palette, though, is a little bit boring to me. I get what they're sort of trying to do, and that said, going through the other color palettes, you can see none of them really feel that different. But that said, I think our Mythic set is great. We see the colors are a bit more saturated, a bit more vibrant and interesting. When we look at the helm is actually like a Naga Myrmidon or Myrmidon, whatever, the big dudes. I think this is really cool. Like, this looks really badass, where, say, I think it was the tier 11 Murloc one, which just looked a bit goofy and silly. This, though, I think, is a really, really fantastic hunter set that I like a great deal. To be honest with you, though, all of this has just been leading up to the Rogue, which I think has the best set in the game when you look at its mythic. It truly is amazing. But let's have a look at these first. What do we get? First of all, look at these gloves. They're kind of like knuckle duster claws on them. Brilliant. Another thing that I love, all of this 3D detail. This is something I've been adding into models a lot more recently, and it really does just bring out, well, obviously more depth, but I think it just does make them look a lot more rich and a lot more characterful. As well, this hat. What a bloody brilliant looking hat. Now it's time for one of the best thing in this video, and this is the Mythic Rogue set. Now, of course, being a rogue, you're very stealthy, which is why you want a red smoky skull in your shoulder, because sure, why not? But just looking at all of this, it is completely oozing with style. It almost looks like it's came out of, you know, another, like, well, basically another time period or genre of game, but then has been adopted into the Blizzard art style, and they've clearly done a fantastic job. Once again, all these little 3D elements, bits of detail surrounding the armor. Truly, this is, I think, one of the best bits of armor in the game. I really love this set. So, yeah, there you go, Rogues. I think you're in for a great time. Okay, time to take a look at the monks. Now, the first thing to realize is they are missing shoulders. Overall, I think strong color palettes, nice saturated colors. I like the idea of these like floating balls, sort of resembles the chi. I particularly like this orange one. I think it's quite nice and vibrant. Again, this is the whole sort of jade green thing, which is pretty iconic. Sort of like, you know, additional layer of spell effects on it. Overall, really rich. I think this is a pretty damn fantastic one, actually, for the Mythic set. As for the other ones, yeah, you know, I'd say pretty middle of the road. And next, you've got the Druid set, and I guess, you know, when you're not in bear form, just why not look like a bear, I suppose. I think this is a really, really damn cool set. I love the texture work going on. It's got this great rustic feel, and this character kind of looks like, you know, he's just been out chopping logs or something, I suppose. Almost feels at home in, say, the Howling Fjord. Overall, I think a very strong look, and it's definitely helped by the fact that Blizzard have become extremely proficient at making really high-quality fur textures. It's one of the things they've really came along with in the last 2 years. And then as for the Mythic version, I think quite similar to the other ones, just a little bit more beefed up. The bear, basically the dead bear that you're now wearing has armor on it, which is kind of ridiculous. But you know what? I'll roll with it. I think it does look kind of unique and cool. Next, let's take a look at the Demon Hunter set. Now, the regular tints of this were great in the model viewer. The Mythic one's a bit messed up, unfortunately, but let's just concentrate what's in front of us. I think this is a really nice set because it's a departure from the norm. We're slightly away from just nothing but fell green and demons everywhere. Of course, this is quite demonic looking. You do literally have demon skull stuff on you, but the overall color palette's a little bit lighter and I think very nice. The general quality of work, once again, is great, benefits from all the normal things. Overall, though, I think it's less than any specific part of this looks great, and more that as an overall cohesive package, I think it's a very strong bit of gear indeed, and hopefully these big golden shoulders would be useful for transmog purposes. And then unfortunately the Mythic set isn't really working out great. What you can probably assume though is, well, first of all, more spell effects on everything, which I think is looking great. Another thing I do like about this set in general is that there's something nice to look at behind your character. I think that's generally good because, of course, that's where the game camera is actually looking. But what you can assume for this Mythic set is probably just this black version for everything with spell effects. Okay, time to move on to the Priests, who once again are getting an absolute cracker of a set, especially when you take the Mythic. So first of all, looking at it overall, what do I think? Beautiful line work. Really nimble, slender. I think it really suits, say, like a night elf quite well, maybe less good in a human male as an example. But overall, I think it is a really just visually satisfying, nice set. Let's take a look at the Mythic. Once again, not completely revolutionary, but just executed so well that I think it'll go down very well with people. Of course, look at the whole shoulder and helm. The really beautiful lighting effects really do just add a lot more to it. Kind of got this halo effect going on over the character's head. And as for the rest of it, beautiful work. You've got these really cool feathers down here. And the cloak that comes with it, one of the things I love in Legion is now that you get cloaks with your sets. The cloak sort of flows with the rest of the set. Absolutely beautiful work. So next, looking at the mages, we have some rather cool sets. What I like about them is they use trousers instead of like a big gown. And when we look through the non-mythic versions, what you see is they generally choose a color theme, they stick to it, they don't have too much clashing going on. I think it's a good, smooth, sleek thing that, okay, does it look like something you'd wear? No, but it kind of vaguely is resembling clothes. rather than sort of craziness, which is nice from time to time. Overall, I think good color variants. I especially like what's going on with the hand. Even if you don't like this set, I think this handpiece will be quite useful in many different transmogs. And then moving on to the Mythic version, it really is quite similar, but you do see a slightly different headpiece and slightly more exaggerated shoulders with more effects. On the whole, I would say the mages are doing quite well, and this is definitely a set I would like to get. And finally, let's take a look at the Warlocks, and I think they are doing extremely well with this tier set. So first of all, you've got extremely strong head and shoulders, which is normally the case in World of Warcraft, but here, I think particularly so. These will go great with other transmog sets. I love the subtle smoke effects, but what's particularly nice is the shape of the head. It's actually done in this really cool sort of chunky way that completely sells the idea of you wearing this metal mask. Now, the mask itself seems woefully inconvenient, but I love the detailing going on with the mouth. No idea how that's supposed to work or make sense, but I think it looks pretty damn cool, and I suppose overall that probably is what they're going for. Of course, we've got this purple option, which I think looks pretty good. As you know, again, I like purple, so it's good to have that. And then here is just another slightly different color variation, which I think will look particularly well in a few different transmog sets that I can think of. Finally, though, we've got their Mythic set. Now, this really does look fantastic. Once again, way more 3D elements. That's the big thing they've been pushing recently with new gear sets. The actual texture work on these is brilliant, giving us that sort of gradient going across, which just makes this look really horrible and nasty. Lots of spikes. A hell of a lot of spikes. Kind of ridiculous. There's now spikes in the helm. Overall, I think an extremely strong Warlock set. That said, very stiff competition. I think Warlocks generally have got very cool, very stylized sets in World of Warcraft. I think the Warlock does have a great visual identity with the game, so it's nice to see that be upheld, because I think this really is a great set. So there you go, a look at all of the new bits of set gear that have been added in this patch. Overall, I think it's an extremely strong tier. There are a few low points there, but none of them are that bad, and certainly I think the good sets here are some of the best, specifically thinking of that priest and that rogue. But anyway, guys, let me know what you think down in the description. There will be a straw poll. I'm keen to hear what you think about this tier. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.